What's going on YouTube? So even though American families have been gravitating towards crossovers, the midsize sedan is still a very popular segment.
And Kia brought the nameplate K5 to the market just a few years ago, and we're in the latest 2024 version.
So with new competitions such as the refreshed Hyundai Sonata on the horizon, should you buy this or wait for that? Let's go ahead and find out. Now, like always, the first place we want to start off with is our spec dump. So under the hood for 2024, we're not going to see any changes. So that means unlike the 2024 Sonata, we're not going to drop the 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. That's what most models are going to continue to have with the K5. It's making 180 horsepower, 195 pound-feet of torque.
You do have that GT if you want the more powerful version. It's going to have an 8-speed automatic transmission. And as far as your fuel economy, it's sitting at 31 miles a gallon combined with front drive. And you do have the option of all-wheel drive for the GT trim level.
Now, like with every review, we're going to go out on the road a little later in this video, give this an extensive test drive, collect things like our signature sound level reading so we can compare to other vehicles on carconfections.com. But first, let's close up the hood and take a look at what we've got with the exterior design. Now, when it comes to the exterior design, the K5 and the Sonata have always looked very different, and honestly they're going to look even more different for 2024 once the Sonata integrates new elements like the full-length light bar. Now, what do we have on the K5 for 2024? We've got that signature tiger nose look. This is the GT line model, so this is going to give you a little bit more of an aggressive front-end design. You've got this smoked chrome look to the grille itself, and you have some gloss black accents down here in the lower fascia, which looks quite nice and quite aggressive. Let's also talk about the headlights themselves. So standard LEDs on all models, however GT line and GT models have the availability of these projector LED headlights as a premium package upgrade. We also have the really cool looking heartbeat daytime running light and turn signal indicator, plus down below you'll find LED fog lamps. Now, of course, one of the things we've always liked about the K5 is that it has a kind of sporty profile, and that does continue for 2024.
Yeah, and for the GT line and GT models, you're going to have this blacked out lip spoiler, which looks really good, especially with the white. And let's check out our taillights and see if all the elements are LED or if they've changed anything for 2024. So I have an LED brake light, incandescent reverse light, and incandescent turn signal. So 1 out of 3 elements are LED. We do have LED accenting going all the way across the back. This is actually what Kia calls their dash LED taillight design. That's going to be standard on GT line as well as the GT and optional on the EX model. Now, dropping down to the lower area, we do have a pretty aggressive diffuser. For the GT line, we do have the faux exhaust pipes here that have like the trapezoidal look. If you choose the GT model, you'll get quad real exhaust outlets, which I think certainly looks very impressive.
Another important aspect of design is, of course, your wheel choices. You're going to start out with 16-inch alloys on your base LXS. You work your way up to 18-inch alloys for most models, including this GT line. Really nice contrast look to these, by the way. And if you choose that performance-oriented GT, that's going to get you 19-inch alloys. As we take a look at our mirrors, standard heating, standard blind spot monitoring, gloss black finish for both the GT and the GT line models. And if you want power folding, that is available on GT and EX as an option.
Now, as far as your overall length, we're looking at 193.1 inches for the K5. That does not change for 2024. And let's talk about your safety systems for this model. You're going to have 3 out of your 4 active safety features as standard equipment on the K5. Additionally, on the higher end models, you can further add adaptive cruise control with their highway drive assist function. But guys, it is as hot as Saturn out here.
What did he say?
Wait to get onto the inside. Black was definitely not the color choice that I should have picked today. So let's go ahead and check out those changes. But before, if you're new here, we're brothers and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
Now let's move on to the interior. First, we'll take a look at our key fob. Typical Kia key fob, you have standard smart entry. You also have remote start built into the fob itself. And we'll go ahead and get to the interior, climb inside by pushing that button because it is very hot out here. It's as hot as Venus. Thankfully, we know more about cars than we know about planets. Anyways, let's talk about the interior color material choices straight from the start here. Cloth seats on the base model, cloth and leatherette combination seat here with the GT line. We have the black option. If you choose a red option, you pay a little extra. It'll be full leatherette, and the same goes for the other two trim levels as well. You also have 10 ways of power adjustment for your seats. That's going to be on all but the base model. Memory seats are optional on the top two trim levels, but let's climb on inside. Now that we're inside, let's look at the rest of the materials. Nothing's changing for 2024, so we have full leatherette over here on the armrest. It is going to be a hard touch in the center section, soft touch along the top. As we go to the upper dashboard, this is all going to be finished in a leatherette with a stitching detail. We have a faux aluminum here on this GT line. And then as we move down to the lower panels, everything's nice and solid feeling as well. Now you do have push button start located right here. Now heading into a first-person perspective, let's talk about some of the technology going on here, especially with our gauge cluster. So with that refresh Sonata, you're gonna get a dual display setup that's gonna go across the whole front end here. Here with the K5 for 2024, at least, you're going to continue to have the analog gauge cluster. So you've got a 4.2-inch multi-function display instead. So keep that in mind. As we pull back to the steering wheel, very nice looking steering wheel, typical Kia fare, flat bottomed. It is GT line branded as well. Manual tilt and telescoping. Heating is also going to be available on the GT line. Now we've been doing something new recently called the Car Confections donut test to check out these center consoles. So we've got a dozen donuts. I'm gonna load in the last 4 of our dozen here to see if it will fit inside of this console. Looks like it is definitely going to. It closes, no problem whatsoever, so the K5 passes the dozen donuts test. Up in front of that, we have a nice wireless phone charging pad that's gonna be standard on GT line. You got your cup holders. Up in the front, another large storage area and a couple more traditional connections. Pulling back to the shifter, this has the traditional T-shaped shifter. Just pull back for drive, bump over here to left if you want to control the shifts manually. Going into reverse, we've got a traditional backup camera on board. It does have active trajectory. A 360 camera is available on your top end trim levels. Back behind that, you got your electronic parking brake. You have brake hold, drive mode controllers, and just like with a lot of Kia models, you have the console mounted controls for your heated seats. So heated seats are going to be standard on the GT line. Ventilated seats are available as an option on the EX and the GT. Now speaking of kind of climate and comfort, we have a standard dual zone automatic climate setup. Nice physical controls through here that are super easy to use. You also have physical controls for your audio system. So most models will come with a 6-speaker sound system. Those top 2 trim levels, once again, will come with an available 12-speaker Bose sound system. But let's sample the standard one. Overall sound quality is perfectly adequate for this price point. All right, so as far as the main display itself is concerned, this is going to continue unchanged for 2024. It's a 10.25-inch display. This is going to be included on all but the base model, which will also come with an 8-inch display. Now, the important difference between the 8 and the 10.25-inch display is that the 8-inch display has wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. This larger display that's on most models will come with a wired connection. So as you can see, you will have to plug in via a USB for that functionality, but you also have a built-in navigation system that you can use. Moving up top, we've got a manual dimming mirror. And since we have the panoramic sunroof package, that does mean that we have a panoramic sunroof, as you probably assumed. As you can see, the front portion does open up. What you might not have assumed is that the panoramic sunroof package gives you LED interior lighting as well.
All right, guys, come on back here and sit with me in the rear seat of the 2024 Kia K5. Now, this rear seat area has always been a nice place to spend time, and that's going to continue for 2024. So let's go ahead and dive into the rear specs. 35.2 inches of legroom, 37.8 inches of headroom, which does actually place this as quite a bit smaller than a lot of its mainstream rivals like the Honda Accord, the Toyota Camry. That being said, I don't think Hyundai knew how to measure. They didn't have a bendy ruler like I do, because guess what? Sitting behind Drew's sitting position, I still have 10 inches of knee space. I'm 5'9", and I can barely even reach the seat back. So I think with the Kia K5 and the Hyundai Sonata, I just think they didn't quite measure right, because it's pretty much just as spacious as the Toyota Camry, in my opinion. Now, as far as features are concerned, here in the rear, we're not going to have vents for the GT line model. If you choose the GT or EX, you will have rear vents. If we drop down below that, though, we do have 2 USB ports. These are the Type A variety. And then we do have a nice fold-down center armrest with cup holders inside. No heated rear seats on the K5. And then as far as the door trim is concerned, hard touch on the upper part as well as in the middle, so it's a little bit cheaper than the front door trim, but we do have a nice leather armrest portion and a little storage down in the bottom. I'm not really sure if that's big enough for a bottle, but I believe you could fit one sideways. Now, walking up to the K5's trunk, we do have a smart opening feature. And then as far as the amount of space back here, we're looking at 16 cubic feet of cargo capacity. That's actually larger than the Toyota Camry. It's going to be a very large cargo area for a mid-size sedan. It pretty much ties the all-new Honda Accord as well. So this is really, really large. It does actually match the Hyundai Sonata identically at 16 cubic feet. Now, you can fold the seats. They do fold 60-40 split folding. And not as much to measure in a mid-size sedan, but we're sitting at about 44 inches of length. And then as far as the cargo opening, we're looking at about 40 inches wide as well. So a decent amount of space back here in this K5 that is for sure for all of your sedan needs. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the 2024 Kia K5, and in this test drive we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, as you can see on the screen right now. But as always, we will go ahead and start with a hard acceleration before we get into things like our sound level reading.
Nice torque on board for sure.
Yeah.
So like we mentioned with the spec dump, what's under the hood of the K5, most versions of the K5, is going to be the 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. That's got 180 horsepower, 195 pound-feet of torque. And as you can tell, acceleration is pretty nice, especially when it regards to the torque, because you really get that nice sensation as you're being pushed back when you're accelerating up to speed.
Yeah, and as you can see, it was actually enough to get a little bit of tire spin, since we do have the front-wheel drive model on today's example. Yeah, and we've always been a fan of this 1.6 liter turbo. Now, one thing that's worth noting is that when you're comparing this to the upcoming refresh Sonata, they have got rid of this 1.6 liter turbo in that lineup. So this is going to be the only way you're going to get this specific engine configuration is in the K5 now, which previously they used to both have it.
Right, and then since we're already on the subject of differences, when you choose the GT line model, just that trim level, but you can add all-wheel drive, which is unique, not just compared to the Sonata, but unique compared to many of the rivals, including the Accord, which obviously is a big rival in this segment.
Now, it's also worth noting that you do have the GT model, so if you want the performance side of things, that GT is a 2.5 liter turbo, 290 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque, so really powerful if you choose the GT. And if you're new to the channel, you probably don't know, but we have a Sonata inline that has that exact same motor in it as our long-term vehicle, and certainly it's a very cool powertrain setup. So if you want to learn more about that, you can watch our Sonata inline videos. We also have K5 GT videos if you want to dive deep into what that model offers.
As far as the other aspect of the powertrain, that's our transmission. We have an 8-speed automatic transmission on board. Nice and smooth transmission. I really don't have a lot to say about it, which is a good thing. You know, it gives you power when you need it. Seems pretty responsive as well. And just be aware, if you choose that performance model, that's going to substitute this for a dual clutch 8-speed automatic transmission, you know, for having that snappy performance.
Yeah. And as we already said, you do have the option of all-wheel drive, just on the GT line trim level though, so do keep in mind you don't have like the full gamut of choices when it comes to trim levels and pairing all-wheel drive with it, but all-wheel drive is offered, which is rare for this segment of vehicle. For fuel economy for 2024, we're sitting at 31 miles a gallon combined with the configuration that we have with us today, which is probably the most popular configuration, 1.6 liter front wheel drive. If you choose all-wheel drive, it drops down to 28 combined, so 3 mpg penalty for choosing all-wheel drive. And then of course the GT model is going to get worse fuel economy at 27 miles a gallon combined. And now that we're on our designated strip of road to talk about ride quality, let's go ahead and dive into that. This, of course, is a mid-size sedan, and really those are supposed to be comfortable for the family, and this K5 definitely has you covered. I love the seats. It soaks up the bumps as well as you would definitely want it to. And really, in general, the GT line sporty exterior is not really going to translate into like a stiff ride quality. It's more of a cosmetic package to make this thing look sharp, but it certainly has a very comfortable ride quality and ride focus, that's for sure. Now, since we're also on our designated strip to do our sound level reading, let's go ahead and dive into that, going 55 miles per hour. And we've settled in at 54.3 decibels, which is certainly a very good sound level reading, and I don't have to sit there and guess because we've developed a tool on our own website, carconfections.com, that allows you to go in and look at all of the rivals in the midsize sedan segment and see how quiet they are inside of the cabin. So I can just go ahead and do that right now and see where this 2024 K5 lands in the midsize sedan segment. And it does appear like that is a very good sound level reading. I believe that places it as number 2 in the entire segment when it comes to sound level reading, only being beat out by the Toyota Camry Hybrid that we just tested out just a few weeks ago.
Now let's get into today's slam dunk and airball. I'll start with the slam dunk. It's got to be the fact that this is just value packed.
Yep.
So many things, you know, the prices have been inflating a lot, and for this price, which Mason will talk about a little later in the video, but we're right at $30,000, and that is a great deal these days with the way things have increased. And we even have premium features like a panoramic sunroof. It's very impressive.
Yeah, for sure. Now, as far as our airball is concerned, it's got to be the gauge cluster. So the K5 is going to continue to roll on with only this analog gauge cluster, no digital gauges on the 24 K5, regardless of what trim level you choose. And especially when we're looking at stuff like the refresh Sonata that's now going to have the dual curved displays, it's really going to be quite a bit of a downgrade. So we'd love for Kia to update this, give us the dual displays and the more premium gauge cluster design, that is for sure.
Which they might do for 2025.
Which they might do for 25, but not this year. And lastly here for the warranty, of course, it's a Kia after all, so you're going to have a very good warranty. 5-year, 60,000 mile basic, 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain. Do be aware, though, you do not get complimentary maintenance like you would on a Hyundai. And let's talk pricing for the 2024 K5. Prices aren't going to rise too much this year, only about $300 to $400, which certainly isn't bad in my opinion when everything has gone up so much in price this year. For the LXS trim level, you're starting at $25,300, and then GT line's going to start at $26,800. And then if you add the options like what this one has, I feel like this is a very popular spec, personally, what we've been looking at today, plus the 1125 destination. We're sitting at a little over $30,000 for this model as tested today. Now, do keep in mind, there is that high-performance GT model that can push about $35,000. And guys, that's going to be where we leave off on this in-depth review of the 2024 Kia K5 GT line. If you enjoyed watching this review or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, or found it helpful in your decision as to buy this 2024 K5 or the Hyundai Sonata, be sure to pay us back by hitting that subscribe button down below. We would really appreciate it joining in on this Car Confections family, because by subscribing you help give us access to vehicles like this. Now, if you're already a subscriber and a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support, because you do make this all possible. We additionally would appreciate if you go check out our Instagram and TikTok pages, as well as carconfections.com. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.